Rambam uses the first pasuk of this week's Parsha as a proof text for one of the most important principles of faith, both for the Rambam and for all of us as Jews. The principle of Bechira Chofshit, free choice. Without free choice, what we do doesn't really matter and can't be something we'll be held accountable for because it's not really our choice. Rambam, referencing the first Parsha, which describes the Jews leaving Egypt and tells us that God didn't want to take them, Derech Eretz Plishtim, though it was closer, because he was afraid that people would see, encounter war, and want to return to Egypt. Rambam asks, why did God have to be afraid of that? Why couldn't he control them? Why couldn't he instill within them the bravery that would avoid their wanting to return to Egypt? Why did he have to go in this roundabout way? Because he was afraid that they would want to return to Egypt. Rambam tells us, we see from here, that God does not control people. God does not develop them. God leaves it to us to control and choose and develop ourselves. Rambam, in that piece in Mor Nevuchim Chelik Gimel, Perek Lamed Beis, develops the idea a little further by pointing out that any significant development in a person's life takes time. The more significant the development is, the more of a process is necessary in getting there. And that's something that's hard for us because we're people who live in the generation of instant. We want things to be the way we want them to be right away. And if they can't be that way right away, then we'll just find some other way for them to be. Too often we give up on what we want things to be, what we know they need to be, because we can't get there in a pace that's satisfying to us. And I think we see this from a different perspective later on in the Parsha as well. After Kriyat Yamsuf, we're told, immediate pasuk right after Shivat Hayam, Vayasa Moshe et Yisrael miyamsuf. Moshe moved the people in traveling from Yamsuf. Rashi is bothered by this formulation of Vayasa, as if Moshe moved them, as opposed to Vayisa Moshe uvnei Yisrael, that they travel. Why Vayasa Moshe? Rashi, quoting the Mechilta, says, Heision bal korcham. He moved them against their will. Why did the Jews not want to leave Yamsuf? There are three explanations we find in the Mefarshim, each of which have a lot to teach us. Rashi tells us that the Jews, seeing the Egyptians with all of their wealth lying by Yamsuf, he says the spoils that they could have recovered there were greater than in Egypt. And the Jews were busy collecting the spoils. They didn't want to leave. Okay, very understandable. According to this pshat, Moshe is trying to drive them from petty spoil collection to higher pursuits. The Mechilta, though, itself gives another interesting explanation. It says that when the Jews saw the Egyptian corpses lying there, they realized that their masters were no longer in Egypt. Maybe there were no more men left in Egypt. And the Jews said, let's go back to Egypt and become the masters of the land and worship Avodah Zarah. According to the Mechilta, what happened here was something much deeper. It's not just the greed for money, but it's the continuous interest in returning to Mitzrayim, the inability to extricate themselves from Mitzrayim. It's not coincidental that the Jews, before the Egyptians were vanquished, thought to return to Mitzrayim to be slaves. Now they want to be masters. They want to serve Avodah Zarah, but they're still interested in returning to Mitzrayim. In whatever capacity, it's the world they know, the world they're comfortable with, and the world they're willing to be in as slaves or as slave worshippers. The Zohar, though, puts a different idea, a third idea on the table. The Zohar says that the Jews had a tremendous experience there at Kriyas Yamsuf. Tremendous Gilui Shechina. Chazal tell us that a Shivcha saw at Yamsuf more than Yecheskel ben Buzi saw with his great Nevuot. And they were taking it all in. They were appreciating what there was to appreciate in Yamsuf. Not just the money or the return to Egypt, but the greatness of Yamsuf. And unfortunately, they were caught in the greatness of the moment without an appreciation of the need to take it to the next level. Sfat Emet on Vayikra, reference to Pesach, Tafresh Lametes, he talks about the fact that the Jewish people figured this is such a high, it's over. The process is over, the journey is over. And they had forgotten that the next step needed to be taken. There was a Gilu Shechina of redemption at Yamsuf. Ga'alnu alayam. But the Gilui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself through the Torah, the commitment to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at Har Sinai, Tavdun et Elokim al Har Hazeh, that it had been identified as the mission of Yetziat Mitzrayim from the get-go, that hadn't yet been realized. And it took Moshe's force to push them from this spiritual high to something spiritually even higher. Clearly, this is something we all need to reflect upon. We like to finish the process, to feel that we've arrived. But we need to realize that as long as we're alive, it's because we haven't yet arrived. Processes, significant processes, take time. They take our entire lives. And even if we've arrived at something significant, it's really just a way station to the next stage of something more significant. This is something essential for us to remember if we want to reach Har Sinai and true Avodat Hashem, leaving Avodat Mitzrayim. Shabbat Shalom.